And it is 3:30. Are we on?
Yeah.
We will call this meeting to order. Show that Councilman Hussein is excused absence. All other committee members are present. And if we can have an approval for the June 26, 2024.
Yep, I'll make a motion to approve the June 26 meeting minutes as written.
Okay, looks like I have excused absence here. So should we just table them?
I can make the motion. You just
I
have
can
to.
still go
Yeah.
ahead. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's Deb. And is there any public comment up to 3 minutes? Anybody here from the public? All right. And we are now on to discussion action. We have B, ordinance repealing and replacing the existing sign ordinance in its entirety. And today we also have C, resolution, set a public hearing, Lansing Gateway Corridor Improvement Authority Development and Tax Increment Finance Plan. So we'll go ahead and get started. Who's here for the item B, ordinance of the sign? I'm assuming.
Andy Fedewa, Principal Planner.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, so just to get into the sign ordinance, I was not present on Monday, but I did watch the feed and I saw that no one made public comment, so we don't have anything to really address. In the past month or so, as I've been filling in for the zoning administrator, there's been a few, especially where it concerns sign permits. There have been a few things that I've noticed that I would like to tweak. But before getting into those, these changes we feel are very minor. They're not any broad policy changes. But if it did require a separate public hearing or a delayed cycle, we would drop them because we want to move forward as quickly as possible so we can get a new ordinance in place. But if we could just swap out one draft for the new draft, that would be our preferred path.
You provided us with these, I guess, amendments or
These
changes.
4 minor revisions, and just now it's completely last minute. We understand that.
Yes, thank you so much. So is this something, Renee, that the general public has been able to see?
No.
Okay. How will we ensure that this is revealed to the public as well?
This can be, since he's somebody in this afternoon for you guys to discuss, it will be part of the packet when I will add it to the packet and republish it.
Okay, fantastic. Just want to make sure that. And then secondarily, city attorney, with these, looks about 4 or 5 revisions, are these considered revisions that would require a new public hearing, or are they considered minor?
I'll give you the lawyer's favorite answer. It depends, generally speaking. So looking at this, I mean, generally when we're looking at making changes after something has been introduced, an ordinance has been introduced, and a public hearing has been held, I am looking at whether the changes are more restrictive or less restrictive. And I will say some of these are less restrictive. Some of them are more restrictive. And really the question is an interested party going to have knowledge that this has changed prior to the ordinance going into effect? Now, that being said, the ordinance and the short title to the ordinance that gets published and that everybody has seen, it very clearly says we are totally reworking the sign ordinance. So I would expect that somebody who is interested in what's going on is paying attention to this. I'm not exactly sure what class of persons is specifically interested in sign ordinances, other than someone who eventually owns a sign. I don't.
Or a sign company.
Sure, a sign company. Fair.
So interested stakeholders then.
Correct. I will say, right. The sign company is going to come to the planning and development office and apply and find out what the rules are going to be. And they have to get licenses and permits to do it all anyway. So, right. I'm less concerned about that. Rather, I have high confidence that they will be able to show up and know what the rules are and follow the rules. And I don't think that any of these are going to interfere with their specific interests. Yeah, I don't know. I'll say this is a this is close enough. I don't, given the way that the ordinance is drafted, rather, given the way the notice for the ordinance has been drafted and sent out, and the fact that nobody showed up to say anything one way or the other, I would say we're probably fine from a legal framework, not having another public hearing, because we're really redoing everything. And these are small changes that are being recommended by departments, and reasons are given. It's not just whimsical. But if the council would like to have another public hearing, that's certainly something that you could do. And
I think
we can work with.
So as the city attorney, is this something that's necessary or not?
I would say, sure, I would say
Very
not,
clear answer.
I would say not necessary.
And I guess my thing is just to be full transparent. I don't see anything wrong with having an additional public hearing and stating these 4 revisions.
And in that case, the department wishes to just move forward as is then, without these revisions included. Because we would want the vote on July 22nd.
And why is that? If these are important, now you're saying, well, because of the timing, they're not important. That I am some clarification.
We just want a new ordinance on the books. And so I was just instructed that if this was going to hold it up more than a cycle, we would like to move forward as is. And we understand these are completely last minute.
Who made these changes?
I did, and with consulting with Sue Stachwak and Raleigh, the director of the department.
So what was the necessity or the logic behind these revisions then?
Sure. The first one was requested by Public Service just this past Friday, so that was also last minute request. This would be for projecting signs, so these are signs that go perpendicular from a building face.
Which one are you talking about?
The first one, 1310, yes, 04. In some cases, especially downtown, they project over the right of way. We always direct them to Public Service anyway to get a right of way permit. They just requested that we have a language in there saying that they would be licensed so they could be yearly reviewed. That was at their request. But again, even without that, we would still operate how we have been by directing them to Public Service to get that license and that approval anyway. This would just put it in the ordinance. The second one, 1310.08, electric message centers. So these are digital signs, not just illuminated signs that have a changing message. We noticed that, well, the Lansing Center and Lugnuts just put in new electric signs that are quite large. I view them a little distracting, but the way that the current code is written, there's no sign limitation on them except for downtown, which is 20 square feet. So theoretically, somebody like maybe a big box store or like a car dealership, they could have a large freestanding sign, 25 feet tall, 120 square feet, a digital sign, or excuse me, a digital message sign. So with that in mind, we wanted to put a limitation in there, and 32 square feet has been kind of our standard measurement size. So that's where we landed on with 32 square feet.
Where did you get the 32 feet? Is that industry standard or something? Where does that come from?
It's the size of a piece of plywood. And we've been just kind of using that as a very easy to recognize basis.
And I will say that is a common number in a lot of sign ordinances, just because it's for a big sign. That's your standard big sign. That's not a billboard.
And that number is elsewhere in the code as well, for different kinds of signs. The third one, 1310.11, temporary signs. Before we had a sign, temporary sign, freestanding sign, could be eternally illuminated. There was recently an instance of a temporary wall sign that was illuminated, and some people found that distracting. We kind of took that a little further. We've just gotten complaints from the public about a particular sign. Even though wall signs we wouldn't allow them to be illuminated. We took this a step further, thinking about freestanding signs. Maybe if someone wanted to have a political message, or maybe like a big sale is going on, that's not really directed to related to their business name, really. We thought that it just might open the door to be distracting with a illuminated sign, illuminated sign during the nighttime. So that's why we kind of did a 180 on that, saying that they should not be illuminated. That makes sense. And then the fourth one, 1310.13, freestanding signs, and these are all our, most of our major commercial, industrial, and institutional districts. Sue spoke, I think about a month ago now, that tier that we used to have, you'd have 5 foot setback to 30-foot setback, and there'd be a gradual increase of how tall that sign could be, how big that sign could be. We just limited it to 10 to 15 feet of setback. The issue with that is most of the sign variances that we get are people requesting that they be closer than 10 feet from the setback. So this language that's in there, allowing from 6 feet up to 10 feet, with a 6-foot height limit and a 32 square foot sign area limit, that matches the next provision in the ordinance for like downtown 3 or MX3, which is like Old Town, Rio Town, Michigan Avenue. It just gives a little bit more flexibility for someone wanting to be a little closer to the street, but also making sure that they're not having a large sign. So it kind of reflects what we have in more of our pedestrian focused districts. So that's where those numbers come from.
So is there a reason that these were not included in the original? I know we had spoken earlier in the year while you guys were going through these revisions. So is there a reason why the Public Service Department and whoever else have had these requests that seem pretty standard and something that it sounds like that you guys feel very passionate about to be standard? Why would we go through a whole ordinance change and not implement these particular areas? So if this is kind of more industry standard, how did we get this last minute? Because it's
sure. Some of it's oversight. There's a lot of rules in the sign ordinance, and we've gone back and forth on a few things. So sometimes things just get left out, or we just forget to circle back, or we don't even think about them. So for instance, for the Lansing Center and the Lugnuts, those big electric message centers, those have been broken for years, and now they just got replaced. So it's one of those things that we didn't even think about, and then we saw like, oh, this could have other ramifications in other businesses or different locations.
I just have one more question regarding the electronic signs not to exceed the 4x8 sheet. Would this hinder the electronic digital billboards, which are obviously a lot larger?
I'll jump in. If you're talking about the ones that are on highway frontages, those are governed totally separately from our ordinance.
Are they all along the highway? We don't have any in the city I know there's one on South Cedar Street right by the highway. There's the other one on 496, and I want to say there's one downtown.
There's one right here on Michigan Avenue.
Right.
Sure.
So this wouldn't let a static billboard that's just like a permanent message. It would not allow them to be converted to an electric message center.
But the ones that are already there would be grandfathered?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I guess I don't have a problem with keeping this as long as that if we put it in the packet that there was 4 revisions or whatever to it. That way it's public still, and that way we're not holding you guys up.
And we'll do our best to publish it on our website. And
I don't want the city to be liable by anybody saying, well, I went to your public hearing and this was not it, but now it is.
And just to clarify what I was saying before, it helps. I should have had Andy go first to explain the context of the changes, because when you hear it, for example, the 1310.04, that's already happening. So if we're changing the code to reflect what's already happening anyway, fine, because they're going to be doing it anyway. You're just something that's already operational. The one that adds, and this is what I meant about more permissive, it lets the sign, it gives you more space on the distance from the property line. If there's more space within which to work to put a sign, that's more permissive. That's not a problem. And then limiting the internal illumination and limiting the sign size to 32 square feet. I mean, in both of those instances, 32 square feet, there's not a limit otherwise placed. And also everywhere else in the sign code as proposed, there is a sign size limit. And I think it's one of those things that when you go through and you're drafting something like this, and we did many iterations of the draft, I mean, we worked with them, they worked with us. You see the problem that you're trying to solve, and then somebody else says, okay, but what about this now? And that's where we are. But they're all they're sensible. You can see where they came from. It's not
Is there any
a wild
signs
change.
that would be affected or any businesses that are already in the pipeline? So if we change this.
There is a clause that says all sign permits already in process stay under the old sign code. Like if you've already got a site plan approved, or site plan approval for your sign, that's gonna keep going. Sure.
We would absolutely respect that. And as we've been getting sign permits, we've also, or requests for new signs, we've been letting them know that there's going to be a new ordinance in place soon. So letting them know, like, if it works out to their favor to do it now, we would respect those rules. But if it works out into their favor to maybe wait a month or so and do it under the new rules, we wanted them to be aware as well. So we're trying to be transparent in that way as well.
I guess I just have one more question. So this would go to a vote on the floor on the 22nd. If that was approved, would that go into effect that same night, or how long?
In the proposed, or the draft ordinance, it's 30 days.
Okay.
So August 21st.
All right, well,
Is there, before we do that, I just have, you said that date. So you've indicated that you want to make sure we stay within that date. Is there any projects or anything that?
No, it's just in the interest of getting a new sign ordinance. It's way overdue. So EDP's interest was just making sure that this was moving, and it wasn't delayed. And again, we understand that this was last minute. So if you wanted to table it for a cycle, we would be comfortable with that. But if you wanted to do a new public hearing and then a new DNP meeting and then hold the vote, we're looking at another month and a half or 2 months. So that was our interest of, if that was the committee's interest, we would say, but never mind on this. But if you're willing to let this go to a vote on July 22nd, that was our preferred outcome.
Thank you.
okay, well, with the city attorney's approval, I would make a motion that this go before the full council on July 22nd.
With that proper motion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All opposed? It's forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the explanation.
All right, now we have C, resolution, set a public hearing, Lansing Gateway Corridor Improvement Authority Development and Tax Increment Finance Plan. Could you state your name for the record and what organization you're with?
Kalia Washington, Community Development Fellow for the Lansing Economic Development Corporation.
Washington, you have a presentation to proceed today?
Yeah, so I have a high-level presentation. This is going to go over what you can find in the actual development and tax increment financing plans. And I provide you with copies of the slides here. So this plan has been reviewed and recommended by the Lansing Gateway CIA for the City Council's consideration. Like I said, this just provides a high-level overview of what's included in that plan. So today's presentation will be broken up into 4 different parts. Those parts are similar to what you can find in the actual plan itself. And I'm sorry, I thought I put some down there for you guys.
And for the public, could you share, I know before the meeting started, you indicated that Lansing Gateway Corridor had been renamed.
Yeah, so originally I believe it was the North Grand River Corridor Improvement Authority.
Okay. So now it's been renamed.
Yes. So as I was saying, this presentation will be broken up into 4 sections, similar to the ones you'll find in the actual plans. We have an introduction to the Gateway Corridor, and then community engagement and plan development, next development projects, and then we'll go over the tax increment financing projections. So first, I'll start by just giving some definitions of key terms to best understand this. I'm sure both of you individuals are familiar with it, but just make sure everyone's on the same page. So a corridor improvement authorities are legal entities formed by municipalities and governed by board of directors to facilitate improvements to a corridor outside the traditional downtown. The purpose of the Lansing Gateway Corridor is to provide economic resources to improve and maintain public infrastructure, correct and prevent deterioration, promote neighborhood-aligned economic growth, And then CIAs are primarily funded by tax increment financing, which captures increases in taxes and reinvests those funds into projects to revitalize the corridor. And we'll get more into tax increment financing later on in this presentation, but just keep all those things in mind as we try to understand the Lansing Gateway CIA and their efforts. And so on the next slide, I just introduced the current board members of the Lansing Gateway CIA. Currently, 5 out of the 8 positions are filled, with 2 of the board members having both a residential and a business relationship with the corridor. And then we have some representatives from the board. So we have Chair Robert Benstein here, Vice Chair Diane Hartwell, and Board Member Bob Van Arkel here in support of the project. Yes.
I got a quick question. I just noticed that one of the ladies that were here before, I can't think of her last name, she owns Maria's Tacos. Is
Yes,
she no longer on the board?
she's no longer on the board.
Would you guys like to join?
Based on what they told me before, is no.
Well under.
Yes. And so in the next slide, you just showcase the boundaries of the Lansing Gateway corridor. So like we stated earlier, primarily runs along North Grand River Avenue. It starts on the west side of the corridor boundaries, the Waverly Road and the city limit. And then it continues to go down North Grand River. You'll see a few north and south branches. That first north branch that you see is going to the Capital City Boulevard, which leads to the airport. I could provide it digitally, but I thought we were going to be able to do the presentation, but
Well, if you can just email it to me.
yeah, I can definitely email you the presentation, that's for sure. And then when it goes to the floor, obviously, you guys will see the actual presentation, a lot more graphics included. And then that next northern branch that you see is North MLK. We continue to go down North Grand River. That first southern branch is just North Grand River Avenue, but the bridge going towards Olympic Royal. And then the next one will be Turner Street, and the corridor district ends on the east side of it, where the Old Town district begins. And then the next graphic, it shows a little bit better, it's just a better view, shows more identifying landmarks such as the Capital Region International Airport. You can see the Grand River in that next graphic. So I know it's still a little brainy, but it may be a better visual for you guys.
It's in our packet.
No, it's not. It will be added afterwards as well.
We just want to make sure all, because we're recording, so it's a public meeting, and all residents know the boundaries.
Yes. I can definitely provide that.
So in the future, if you guys have any presentations, just make sure,
It varies on the committee.
well, if
So-
you just call into the office to make sure they'll put them, they'll upload them.
Okay, so you can
And
access it.
then if they have questions, or if they.
Okay. We weren't sure we should have provided this because you guys don't have the screens. I was like, I don't know if they actually want the physical or the digital presentation, but I'll keep that in mind going forward. So thank you.
It goes to the, so the public has
Yeah.
access.
For sure. I can definitely email it directly after this meeting. And then the next graphic is from the City of Lansing's comprehensive plan showing transportation improvements suggested for that area, which includes intersection improvements, bus stop enhancement, streetscape changes, and et cetera. And those suggestions are kept in mind when we draft the plan and is implemented into the proposed projects. Are we good here before we move on to the next section of the presentation? Okay. So now we can talk about the actual process of developing the development and TIF plan. So in 2019, Mayor Andy Short proposed and the City Council approved the establishment of the Lansing Gateway Corridor Improvement Authority. It may have been the North Grand River Corridor Improvement Authority at that time, I'm not 100% certain. But from there, the board was established. We gathered board members, due diligence was done. But the actual development of the plan process started to take off really in 2023. First with an area study that provided us with information such as social economic information, land use, mobility information, case studies to show what's best, will be the best improvements for this focus area. And then next, the City of Lansing brought on a community development fellow to actually facilitate the development of the plan. And that's where I came in. First order of business with that was issuing a community input survey, which was made available to the public, which allowed anyone with a relationship with the corridor to let us know what development efforts they would like to see in the area. And that survey did get about 100 responses from residents, business owners, and other people with affiliations with the corridor. And then we use all that information, other sources, and working with the board to basically create the well-informed strategic plan that you have in front of you today.
The fellow programs that City of Lansing selected to host, so I thought you were working with the LEDC.
Yes, so the municipality is the ones that can apply for the program, and then the actual host community is like a combined application. You can host the host community doesn't have to be within the city, but is technically the City of Lansing's fellow. But I'm just hosting the Lansing EDC.
Who is that through then?
CEDAM, so
I know CEDAM.
no, so although City of Lansing applied in collaboration with LEDC, I work at the LEDC.
Okay, so we don't have other fellows.
I don't think so.
Nope.
Like her employment is handled through EDC.
Yes. And it's only one fellow per region.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
No, not until the next cohort. So moving on to the actual development projects. So within the plan, development projects are broken up into 4 different categories. And those categories are based on the Michigan Economic Development Corporation's Main Street model. And so that includes design, which enhances the physical characteristics of the corridor, economic restructuring, which focus on blight elimination, business retention and expansion, and small business development. Promotion and marketing, which seeks to help create a positive sense of identity for the corridor, and an organization just ensuring that the way the corridor is revitalized is accomplished through fundraising and volunteer development. And then the next slide just goes over projects that you'll actually see in the plan under those respective categories. So, and also if you would like to refer to the actual plan, the projects table is on page 21 through 23. And so that for design, that includes beautification efforts and improvements to the streetscape. And those are efforts that the board has already initiated through current projects using the ARPA funds that have been granted to them. And so we currently have a landscaping effort underway and also signage efforts. And then under economic restructuring, we have incentivizing developers to redevelop the area, promoting our commercial properties, and providing funding to businesses along the corridor. Under promotion and marketing, once again, creating that sense of identity for the corridor. And I can say the signage efforts that the CIA is currently undergoing can also fall under that category, including the street sign toppers that are going to be installed by the end of the summer along the corridor. And then organization, establishing necessary committees as needed, and then working with other neighborhood and business association in the area to get projects done. Now that we have an understanding of proposed projects, obviously we need to talk about funding. So there's a list of possible funding sources that the CIA could use, but the main source of revenue will be that tax increment financing, which we will get into in the next slide, or however it shows up on your paper. So we saw earlier that the CIA district was created in 2019, but in order to utilize the tax increment financing, they have to establish that TIF district. And side note, in order to do that, they have to have the development and TIF plan approved. So that's why we're going through this process today. Excuse me. So once the district is created, we add up all the current taxable values for the parcels that's included within the district. And that gives us our baseline taxable revenue. And so if you see in the graphic included in the slide, it's that existing tax base. And so that number will tell us how much taxable revenue will continue flowing to the existing taxable body. So that'll be the City of Lansing, the county, Ingham County, et cetera, to fund the traditional municipal needs. In conjunction to that, the actual CIA will facilitate public improvements in hopes of not only developing the area, but also increasing the taxable revenue generated within the district. And they can capture that tax increment that you see in the graph to fund public improvements. And so essentially they are reinvesting the taxable revenue that's generated within that district during the 15-year duration that the CIA is open, and reinvesting that back into that district specifically to improve the area. So just to be clear, that establishing a TIF district does not create any new taxes, but instead redirects or reinvests how the taxable revenue generated within that district is utilized while the CIA is functioning. Is there any questions with that?
Well, I guess my only question is right now is, I thought we went through a similar presentation when it was the North Lansing Corridor Improvement Authorities. Did they not request a TIF at that time? Is that why we're doing this?
Yeah.
Okay, right.
So although the CIA may have been established for a while, they don't have access to the TIF financing.
And do all the other corridor improvement authorities have a TIF already?
Yes.
All of them,
So
yes. This will be the last one.
I think so. She said yes, and I take her word.
Yes, yes, they all have a plan they're
I can
capturing.
verify they do. It's the last one to be to have a development finance plan. That's why all the other CIAs have been capturing taxes that they can reuse. This one has not been able to.
Why, do you know why?
Because they don't have an approved development tax increment financing plan.
Do you know why?
Capacity,
Yeah, it takes time. Once the Corridor Improvement Authority gets set up, they've got to meet, they've got to figure out what's going on, they've got to come up with a plan, and they've got to propose a plan, and they got to make this document, and they only meet so
And
often.
it happened right before COVID, is when it
Yes.
got approved. So then once COVID hit, everybody shut down and it just kind of got stagnant for a minute and then it got reworked.
and that's why they're able to tap into special resources like the CEDAM Fellowship to bring someone on whose sole focus was creating the plan and making sure we work with the board to get it complete in a timely manner.
I remember Java saw in the community a couple of times on surveys, and so that's awesome to see here.
Pushing those surveys.
Yes.
Very good.
So moving on, and last slide is just a TIF projection table using a 102.5% growth rate. Within the actual plan, you will find 3 different projection tables, one at 100% growth rate, and that's one at the 102.5, and then a 225% growth rate for the last one. And this just shows potential increment that the CIA could use to capture and fund the proposed development projects. And it kind of highlights how the baseline, obviously there'll be no capture that year, and then how it will continue to increase over time, and showing a possible total amount that the CIA will have in their bank to use for development projects at the end of that 15-year period at this growth rate. And with that, that's just a high-level overview of what you'll find in the actual plan itself, and I can open it up to questions at this point.
I don't have any questions right now.
I don't have any questions.
So this will go to a public hearing for the
August 26th.
August 26th.
August 26th?
That's what we have here.
From the impression to be July 22nd.
22nd.
It goes to council July 22nd to set the hearing.
Oh, yes,
And
yeah.
then there is.
Okay, just,
Okay, right.
Yeah.
No, you're right, you're right.
yeah, so that just threw me off. Thank you. That makes sense. Okay, yeah.
Okay. So what was that date, August?
26th.
That's
And
what
that's-
the hearing will
that's what
actually
we
be,
Okay.
so you can meet your public notice requirements.
Yes, and then during that time period in between the setting of the public hearing and the actual public hearing, we'll be sending out certified mail to all taxable bodies, posting along the corridor, and also issuing news articles to make sure the public's aware of this effort, and they can come and say any concerns or, support that they have.
Are you putting it out there on social media as well?
We could.
I guess I have one more question. Now that we have, the multiple different CIA authorities, has there been any talks of like a Cedar Street or a Pennsylvania one with any business owners?
So one of the things that we did discuss, just because of the time that it takes, is if that is something that that those districts would like to see happen, that starts maybe at a grassroots level, so business district first, and then building that into a CIA. So it's definitely something we talked about, looked at doing. We just want to make sure there's certain areas, like you mentioned, South Cedar, that we talked about looking at doing a CIA, but we want to make sure the businesses, it starts organic. And that's what the businesses in that area need So looking to start maybe business organizations there first, local business, and then expanding that into.
So when you say that, are you saying that that's what you're doing at LEDC, or is just something they have to start? Who would they go to, or how can we direct them if we had businesses that were interested in making sure that they had a core that was revitalizing and impacting their community and their business?
Oh, good question. So it's not something that we're currently doing at the LEDC. Is when business districts would like to get started. We would like for them to come talk to us first, and then we could talk to them about starting up the business district. And the reason for that is because of the tax capture. So we want to make sure that there is business need and there's business commitments there first before we start trying to access taxes to build up that district. So it's not something that we're doing currently, but when districts has been brought to us about specifically Cedar Street, having the business kind of started organically first, and we will work with them on that.
Okay, so if you have small businesses, most of them don't know of LEDC. So how would we find out if businesses are interested in being able to direct them to your organization?
So we are doing a better job of working on our strategic plan, and marketing is a big part of our strategic plan, with us separating from Leap over just a year ago. So us marketing ourselves is something that we realize is something that we need to do so that the business community is aware that we're out there. Looking on the Lansing City website, and then oftentimes we get referred from individuals. So when individuals are working in the on any of our current corridors or in our Old Town, Real Town, I know I try to make myself as presentable as possible, but another thing that we're working on is a retention program. So I'll be heading that. We're looking to roll that out in the fall, where I'm actually making retention visits. We have lists of businesses to go see. So I'll be in the community speaking to businesses that have not, let's say they haven't been proactively approached by the city of Lansing or by the LEDC. Usually they're calling into the city when they have issues. Now I'll be doing proactive calls on businesses here in Lansing to make sure that they're getting the services that are needed, or that they have a voice or some assistance if they do need that.
Fantastic. Will you be doing that on South Cedar? Because we've had several different business owners concerned and felt like that they're not connected to the city and the growth of the city. So is that something that your group or yourself are going to have as a priority area or street?
Yeah, in meetings with the mayor, that's come up. So he's even brought that up as an area of focus. So yes, mostly, and I'm glad that you brought up Cedar Street. That would be the area that we were looking at. This came up in an internal meeting recently as this week. And that's what we determined, Cedar Street, South Cedar specifically, primarily between folks Mount Hope to Jolly area. It's an area that we want to look at focusing. And when I did my facade improvement plan, I actually took flyers to that area of Lansing. So at least they heard of some of the programs that we had. So continue efforts like that.
So if you go to, Mount Hope to Jolly, you're missing Jolly to almost Willoughby. There's a lot of business.
Well, I don't hold me to those districts. It's just those are where we heard. Those are where people have voice concerns that we noticed. So it wouldn't be specific to those areas. That's just, the majority of the area that have businesses that have voice concerns already. So that's what we're talking about. That wouldn't be the exact district. It would be longer than that.
Thank you so much.
Yep, I appreciate that explanation. And
Yes,
if I do hear of anybody that's interested, I will definitely send them your guys' information.
Please do.
Sir?
Okay, with that, I would make a motion to set the public hearing for the Lansing Gateway Corridor Improvement Authority Development and Tax Increment Finance Plan.
Proper motion, all in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. And we are to other. Thank you all for being here. Any other?
Thank you.
All right, well, it is 4:08. I'll call this meeting officially adjourned. Thank you so much.